Chapter 22. When he did the same thing every day, he felt like time flew by. Xianxia ran every morning, climbed stairs, climbed trees, and practiced jumping. The calendar on the Jiao family wall was flipped to November. When Xianxia saw the calendar on the wall, he realized that it had been a long time. It had been 5 months since he came here. Xianxia bent his palms and sharp claws appeared between his fingers. These claws looked similar to those of other cats, but Xianxia knew that his claws were gradually changing. At least they were different from 2 months ago. He didn't deliberately sharpen his claws, nor did he cut them. When his claws grew a little, they would be ground off during training. Then they would grow and be sharpened again. Cat claws were indeed magical things. They were sharp, tough, and flexible. Some people said that a cat's claws were like a multi-purpose Swiss Army knife. Xianxia, who had been training, wanted to make his military saber sharper and tougher. Xianxia knew that he was different from other cats. He heard from the Jiaopa that cats weren't sensitive to sweet things, but Xianxia could clearly feel that he could eat things that other cats couldn't, and he felt good after eating them. For example, people had been debating whether cats were colorblind. Xianxia didn't know what other cats were like, but at least he could distinguish different colors. Then there were his claws. Even if other cats went through continuous training, their strength wouldn't increase rapidly like Xianxia's, and their claws wouldn't have any qualitative changes. However, other than that, Xianxia didn't have any other changes. Even if his strength was close to that of an adult, he didn't have the tendency to become a human. Even if he was trained to climb trees and jump in the forest like a monkey, he wouldn't become a monkey. Would he have to live like this forever? As Xianxia ran, he pondered over his little schemes. Now that his running speed had increased, he could think while running, and he didn't feel tired or out of breath. At most, he would feel a little tired and he would be fine after a short rest. After running 2 laps, they came to a forest on the edge of the school. The area of the forest here was larger than that of the East family compound. Because it was a little farther from the teaching area, there were fewer people. Not far from the woods, the school demolished a red-bricked building that had a long history and was preparing to build a new dormitory area. With the expansion policy, there were more and more students, and the existing dormitory building was no longer enough. Therefore, in this area, other than some construction workers and construction vehicles, no one else would pass through the side school gate. The road was full of dust, stones, and soil. Students and staff who lived outside the school and drove private cars would not be willing to pass through here. Therefore, Xianxia would come here to practice climbing after he finished his run. The forest was quiet, and even if he did something strange, he wouldn't be discovered. Celestine had been helping his senior recently. That case was still ongoing, so Xianxia spent most of his time running and climbing trees by himself. As for the cats in the main courtyard, after the first day, Xianxia gave up the idea of asking them to train together. After resting for a while after running, Xianxia began his daily tree climbing training. Another advantage of training here was that the trees in this forest were generally thicker, which was good for climbing. Xianxia nimbly jumped onto a big locust tree, scratched the trunk, and moved his claws. Then he chose a thick branch that could bear his weight. His body tilted and he slid from the branch to the back. His front and back paws clung to the trunk so that he wouldn't fall. Taking a deep breath, he loosened his hind legs and used his front paws to hold the trunk. His claws were firmly nailed to the trunk, and then he moved little by little to the top of the tree. When he was about to reach the top, he swung his body and flipped back to the front of the branch. Looking around, Xianxia chose a branch that was at an acceptable distance and thickness. He prepared to jumped onto the branch and then began to repeat. When he first heard Celestine talk about this training method, Xianxia was confused. He was now a cat, not a monkey. Why did he have to train like this? Celestine saw the confusion in Xianxia's eyes at that time, but he didn't explain directly. Instead he asked, "Do you think you can't do it? Or do you think no cat can do it? I can tell you for sure that I've seen a cat. When it ran in the forest, it could be more agile than a monkey. It ran in the trees, from branch to branch, from tree to tree. Ever since it learned how to climb trees, it spent most of its time in the trees. Sometimes a tree is a life-saving straw for a cat." Just like that, Xianxia began his tree climbing training like a monkey. Maybe when the time came, he would be able to grab a branch with one paw and shuttle through the forest like a monkey. After climbing 5 branches in a row, Xianxia jumped onto an old goosefoot tree. The reason why he had noticed this tree was mainly because its leaves were a little special. At that time when Jing Tan was resting on the branch, a leaf fell in front of him. It looked like a mandarin jacket. Celestine said that this tree was called goosefoot, also known as mandarin jacketwood. It was a national second-class rare and endangered species. In the big cities except for botanical gardens, it was rare to see such a big goosefoot. It seemed that Tsinghua University had a long history. The goosefoot's flowers looked a little like tulips, and its English name translated to Chinese tulips. Unfortunately, goosefoot's flowering period was May and June. Jing Tan wouldn't be able to see it this year. Next year he would ask his Zhao family to come and see it together. Jing Tan felt the wind, listened to the rustling sound of leaves falling around him and looked around. Now the leaves of many trees had turned yellow. If the temperature dropped, it would rain, or if there was a strong wind, the fallen leaves and trees in the school would start to become bald faster. Winter was coming in Tsinghua City. After climbing the tree, Jing Tan saw that it was still early. The third period of the school had just ended. After the fourth period, Jing Tan went back to the Zhao family for lunch. He didn't want to go back early and wait for lunch. As usual, if he had extra time after training, he would go to the artificial lake for a walk. Animals that looked docile and obedient could easily make people let down their guard. That was why many domesticated animals became people's confidants. Sometimes Xiaoxia would talk to Jing Tan, but she didn't mention projecte at all. She would only talk about things that didn't have much meaning, such as "you're here again today," "are you hungry," etc. Sometimes Xiaoxia would also talk about things related to her profession like the Jiaopa and the others. Another time Xiaoxia suddenly got excited when she saw something related to her field. She tore a small corner of a blank piece of paper from her notebook and tore it even more. He closed the notebook and placed the shredded paper on top of it. Then he took out a rubber pen from the pencil case and rubbed it against Jing Tan's body a few times. Then he approached the shredded paper and sucked it up. Xiaoxia smiled at Jing Tan while holding the pen that had absorbed the scraps of paper. "Look, this is called electricity from friction. So what is the reason for this? Let me tell you, all matter is made up of atoms, and the nucleus of an atom is made up of positively charged protons and neutrons that are not charged." When Jing Tan heard the words, "Look, this is called electricity due to friction," he almost vomited blood. When he heard the words, "let me tell you," his desire to vomit blood became even stronger. You can meet people like this everywhere. After lying on the bench by the artificial lake until the end of the fourth period, Jing Tan went to the affiliated primary school to pick up the Jiao Yuan and Gu Yuzi. However, after class, Jing Tan did not see the two little figures. When Lan Tianju and the others came out, they saw the black cat squatting on the wall. She said, "Black charcoal, Jiao Yuan has already left. He was picked up by Auntie Ling after the first period." The Auntie Ling that Lan Tianju mentioned was Huang's owner. She was also a teacher in the same junior high school as the Jiaoma. Not long after Lan Tianju said that, another little girl in the same class as Gu Yuzi said the same thing. After the first period, Auntie Ling picked up Gu Yuzi. Jing Tan felt that something was wrong, very wrong. Something must have happened. Otherwise, the two children would not have been picked up before school ended. Jing Tan ran back to the main house uneasily. After swiping the access card, he rushed up to the 5th floor. He shouted at the door for a long time, but no one answered. Then he ran out of the building and took the key from the tree where he hid the key to open the door. The house was very quiet. It was almost the same as when Jing Tan went out in the morning. Usually the smell of food would have wafted up at this time, but today there was no smell at all. Jing Tan walked around the room one by one. He did not even find the two children's school bags. This meant that Jiao Yuan and Gu Yuzi did not come back after they were picked up. There was no open book on the desk. There were no small notes in the corridor. There were also no reminders or memos in the house. For a moment, Jing Tan was at a loss. He walked in circles in annoyance. Although this family was not related to him by blood, if it were not for the unbelievable cat transformation incident, Jing Tan would not have come into contact with this family at all. However, it was the Jiaoma who picked him up from the garbage dump in the market. The 4 people in the Jiao family treated him very well. After 5 months, Jing Tan had developed a sense of belonging to this place that he did not want to admit. When he was still a human, he had a few houses, but none of them made him feel this way. He could not tell what the so-called sense of belonging was. It was as if his hair was standing on end outside, but as soon as he stepped through the door, it was suddenly soothed. When he was walking in circles and feeling a little dizzy, Jing Tan suddenly thought of something. He ran back to the bedroom, jumped on the table where the phone was placed, pressed the hands-free button and called the Jiao Pa's cell phone. It rang a few times before it was picked up. Hello. The Jiao Pa's voice was a little hoarse. Jing Tan could feel that he was suppressing his emotions. This made Jing Tan even more upset, so he roared at the top of his lungs. Awu. The Jiao Pa on the other end of the phone was speechless. Only his cat would roar like that. However, he did not expect to receive a call from home at this time. When he saw the caller ID, he did not expect that the caller would be his cat. He knew that his cat was different from other cats, but he did not expect to receive a call from his cat at this time. Seeing that there was no response from the other side, Jing Tan yelled again. This time the Jiao Pa spoke. I am at the hospital. I have brought the Jiao Yuan and the others here. Something happened to Rong Han. You stay at home. There are snacks in the fridge. Awu. Awu. Jing Tan continued to roar at the top of his lungs. Rong Han was Jiao Ma's name. Jiao Ma's name was Gu Rong Han. When he heard that something happened to the Jiao Ma, Jing Tan could not calm down. He wanted to ask where the hospital was, but he could not speak. All he could do was roar. Because he was too upset, he saw a pile of books next to him. He raised his paw and flipped them over. Hearing the sound of books falling from the phone, the Jiao Pa was silent for a while. Then I will ask Exen to bring you food later? Awu. Jing Tan looked at the table. There was a glass cup next to the keyboard. It was a gift from the supplier when he ordered milk for the Jiao Yuan and the others. He swung his tail and smashed it. The Jiao Pa listened to the sound of the glass cup falling to the ground. This time he was silent for a long time. Then he said, I will ask Exen to bring you here later. Wait at home. Don't break it again.